What's going on, everyone? So yesterday we got reports about the Philadelphia 76ers potentially willing to part with a first-round pick to go and acquire DeMar DeRozan. Now, we did get a conflicting report that says that they aren't really going to heavily pursue DeMar DeRozan. It didn't say that they wouldn't trade a first for DeMar DeRozan, but they're not really going to push it. They're not really going to pursue it. It's kind of one of those things, like, to me, it kind of seemed like Philadelphia threw the flyer out there and is like, hey, you may be interested, call us, call me maybe. And they're going to wait and see what Philadelphia does. And if Philadelphia picks up the phone and calls, then they'll have that conversation. Or if, Chicago picks up the phone and calls, then they'll have that conversation, right? That's kind of how that felt to me, based on the two reports. But regardless, right? If they are not interested in DeMar DeRozan, whatever, I don't care. This isn't a Philadelphia channel. This is a Laker channel. And the reason I'm bringing up the potential of DeMar DeRozan going to Philly is because if that report is true, then that means Philadelphia has some kind of inclination that DeMar DeRozan may potentially be available. Because up until this point, it kind of seems like Chicago doesn't want to part with DeMar DeRozan, right? Their entire plan is to unload Zach LaVine. They want to trade Zach LaVine. And the plan originally was they wanted to move off of Zach LaVine ASAP, kind of see what the team looks like with the pieces that they got in the Zach LaVine trade, and then decide, okay, what are we doing? Are we keeping DeMar? Are we trading DeMar? Or what are we doing with Caruso? What are we doing with X, Y, and Z player on this roster, right? Are we tearing it down and rebuilding, or are we kind of good enough to where it's like, oh man, in the offseason, maybe we get one or two more players. But they still haven't been able to find a suitor for Zach LaVine. There was a report that came out from a Chicago insider, KC Johnson, that said that Chicago's probably going to have to give up an asset to unload Zach LaVine because teams just really aren't interested. Like, the Detroit Pistons are the only team that's really called, and they're undecided, is what the report said. They're not really against it, but they basically want Zach LaVine for what they want. They want Chicago to give up stuff and basically part with what they feel they're willing to part with, and it's kind of one of those like take it or leave it, and Chicago doesn't seem interested in taking it, right? So here's the thing. I have been big in the Zach LaVine talk, right? I really like the idea of Zach LaVine and the Lakers. I love the idea of Deonte Murray and Zach LaVine on the Lakers. Just push the chips to the table and let's go all in. Now, because at that point, I mean, imagine a starting five of Deonte Murray, Zach LaVine, Jared Vanderbilt, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. At that point, if it all works, you're probably the best team in the league. And the Lakers have a lot of ground to cover. So my thinking was like, okay, if DeMar DeRozan isn't on the table. Because if you remember early on, and I've had many people talk about this and mention it, I was like, hey, we need to get DeMar DeRozan, go get DeMar DeRozan, DeMar DeRozan, DeMar DeRozan, DeMar DeRozan, right? Say that 10 times fast. But I was really big on DeMar DeRozan. I wanted DeMar DeRozan. I didn't really want Zach LaVine. I like Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine, and like I always said, the floor with DeMar DeRozan, I think, is higher than with Zach LaVine, but I think the ceiling with Zach LaVine is higher than with DeMar DeRozan. The big issue with Zach LaVine isn't the player, it's the contract, right? Like, $40 million is a lot to invest in a Zach LaVine who isn't really a superstar. He's an all-star level player. He's a very good impact player. When he's on, he is up there with the best of them, scoring-wise. And he's actually pretty good defensively. He's around league average this year. For people that say, like, oh, he's a terrible defensive player, he'd be like our fourth best defensive guy behind Anthony Davis, Jared Vanderbilt, and Cam Reddish. Like, literally. So my thing was like, okay, I wanted DeMar DeRozan, but we have new information that says Chicago doesn't want to trade DeMar DeRozan, and they're probably not going to. DeMar DeRozan said publicly twice that he wanted to re-sign and stay with Chicago. Chicago's owner said that they wanted to re-sign DeMar DeRozan. So my thing was like, okay, we can't get DeMar DeRozan, go get Zach LaVine. And this was also before the Deonte Murray thing, which I still think Zach LaVine would be the better fit. But I do understand you go get Deonte Murray and you have more flexibility. Cool. I'm fine with that. Okay. But look, if DeMar DeRozan is even remotely available, go get DeMar DeRozan. Can you go get Deonte Murray and DeMar DeRozan? I would love that. Absolutely love that. Because again, imagine a starting five of DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan, Jared Vanderbilt, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. And DeMar DeRozan, you could probably get, it'd be just much easier because you could still keep a lot of your depth, right? I would even, and some people might not, but to me, you're going all in at this point, right? You're going to get DeMar DeRozan, you go get DeJounte Murray. To me, do the DeJounte Murray trade, go trade D'Lo to that third team, right? Whatever. Maybe you can even pick up a Royce O'Neal in the deal, right? That would be cool. I wouldn't mind at that point. Let's say you get Royce O'Neal, right? Ideally, I'd love Dorian Finney-Smith, but let's say you don't. Let's say you keep it simple. Say you get Royce O'Neal, all right? So you get DeJounte Murray, Royce O'Neal. I would love and wouldn't mind if the Lakers called up Chicago and were like, hey, we don't have any firsts, right, to give you, but how do you feel about Austin Reeves? We'll give you Austin Reeves and a second or 2 seconds, and you give us DeMar DeRozan and Andre Drummond. Because I think the Lakers need a backup center, and Andre Drummond's probably the best in the league as far as like backups go, right? And now you basically turned Austin Reeves, Jalen Hood-Schifino, you probably trade in Rui Hachimura at that point, maybe Gabe Vincent. Let's say D'Lo, Reeves, Vincent, Rui, a first, a pick swap, and 2 seconds, right? Which sounds like a lot. But you'd be getting back DeJounte Murray, Royce O'Neal, DeMar DeRozan, and Andre Drummond. That's pretty good. I like that a lot. Because now you'd have a starting five of DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan, Jared Vanderbilt, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. When Jared Vanderbilt comes back, obviously. We need Jared Vanderbilt to come back. In the meantime, you could always just move DeMar to the 3 or whatever and keep Prince at the 2 or whatever. You figure it out, right? I know some people would probably be like, no, trade Taurean Prince in that deal some way, somehow. Or you go Royce O'Neal, right? Oh, wait, we have Royce O'Neal now, right? So you could go, never mind, you go DeJounte Murray, Royce O'Neal, DeMar DeRozan, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. But let's be real, Darvin Ham's going to start Taurean Prince, right? So let's say you start Taurean Prince. Now your bench, right? You'd have to get a second playmaker, right? But I think you could address that in the buyout market, right? Maybe Chris Paul gets traded and bought out. Boom, there you go. Or Kyle Lowry. Boom, there you go. Not really worried about that. But let's say until that happens, your bench is Royce O'Neal, Christian Wood, Andre Drummond, Cam Reddish. So you basically have 4 guys off the bench that fill that need. The only thing you need is a playmaker. But you have DeJounte Murray, you have LeBron James, and you have DeMar DeRozan, who can also kind of fill in spots as a playmaker. He's done it for Chicago and has taken on the point guard role for Chicago many times, and he did it a lot for San Antonio. Pop had him as like the initiator, as the main playmaker. So he's capable of doing it, right? Obviously, he's not a point guard, but again, until you get that guy, you'd be fine, in my opinion. Or maybe you keep Gabe Vincent, and when he comes back from injury, cool, there's your backup point guard. I love that. Go get DeJounte Murray. To me, you'd have to get the DeJounte Murray deal done first, right? One, because Atlanta may be upset if you trade Austin Reeves for DeMar DeRozan, but I don't think Chicago, I believe that Atlanta will part with DeJounte Murray for D'Angelo Russell if they find a third team, because one, they just want to get off of DeJounte Murray. Chicago, on the other hand, I don't believe will trade DeMar DeRozan unless it's a deal that they absolutely love and they get back a player or two that they absolutely love. And to me, that's where you can entice them with Austin Reeves. Of like, hey, DeMar DeRozan could leave you in the offseason. You'd have Austin Reeves on an incredible contract. Kobe White, Austin Reeves, and then you figure out the rest of your roster, maybe hit that reset button, trade whatever you can for Zach LaVine. There you go. Trade LaVine to the Pistons, or you keep Austin Reeves off the bench, see if you can make it work with Zach LaVine, right? And see if he buys in more. And now that, DeMar's gone and he can kind of be the main guy, right? That is something that I think would make a lot of sense. So to me, you go get the Dejounte Murray trade done first. The third team is looking more and more like it's going to end up being Brooklyn. So again, can you get a Royce O'Neal out of that deal? Get Royce O'Neal, get Dejounte Murray. Then after that deal is done and finalized, that is when I would hit up and call Chicago and be like, hey, where there's smoke, there's fire. Philly, is it true? Like, what is your asking price for DeMar? Oh, it's 2 firsts, it's this, that, whatever. Okay, well, we don't have that because we just traded it for Dejounte Murray. But what we do have is we have Austin Reeves, right? And Austin Reeves is probably, bare minimum worth a first, but at least he's a proven commodity, and he's where, a first-round pick is a crapshoot for you. At least you get a guy for now and the future, right? How many players are you getting that are going to be better than Austin Reeves? And we'll give you, other stuff. Maybe we'll throw in, a Max Christie or a Maxwell Lewis or whatever. It's one of the reasons why I didn't mention Max Christie, because I'm sure some people are going to be like, what about Max Christie? Because you may end up having to use him as leverage. But if you can keep him, cool, great, right? I like Max Christie. I think he has star potential. But you may have to entice them, right? Like, hey, give us DeMar. We'll give you Caruso, or we'll give you Christie. We'll give you Austin Reeves. Maybe you could even get Caruso, right? Can you convince them to give you Caruso in the deal? But even if you can't, right? Even if it's just DeMar DeRozan, I would want them to get Andre Drummond too. I'd kind of be like, hey, we want Andre Drummond also. Because again, you really could use that backup center. And I just think you'd be set. Christian Wood, Andre Drummond at the 4 and the 5. You have Cam Reddish as your 3. You have Royce O'Neal as your 2. The only thing you need is that starting level or that backup level point guard, which I don't think would be hard to get. Again, maybe it's Gabe Vincent. Maybe it's somebody, Kyle Lowry or Chris Paul, that you're just asking to come in and play 10 to 15 minutes a game. Boom, you're good. But what do you think? How do you feel? Do you think, yes, go get DeMar DeRozan, right? Get Dejounte Murray and DeMar DeRozan if you could do both. Again, I personally I've always favored DeMar. Again, Zach LaVine, he's the better three-point shooter. He's more athletic. He's younger. There are a lot of positives with Zach LaVine. But DeMar DeRozan to me is more of the constant, right? He's the more consistent. You know what you're going to get from DeMar DeRozan. And he's also extremely clutch. He's been, one of the best clutch guys in the league the last handful of years. 2 years ago, he was number 1 in clutch. So he's a guy that can hit big shots. He doesn't rely on his athleticism. He's very savvy. He plays a bunch of games, right? He's Mr. Reliable when it comes to playing games. So you'll be able to count on him game in and game out. I understand he's 34, but the thing is, too, is his game is probably going to age like fine wine because he's not super reliant on athleticism. He's not super reliant on exploding past the defender or anything like that. He's very crafty and very skilled at just getting to his spot, pulling up and hitting a shot. And it gives you a guy that you could just give the ball to and just say, hey, go get us a bucket, right? How many times does the Lakers offense just get stagnant? To have DeMar DeRozan, especially come playoff time, because the mid-range is so important in the playoffs. Because teams' main focus, protect the paint and close out on three-point shooters, right? Every team in the league, that's what they do. It's why. Go back and look at all the teams that usually advance far into the playoffs or even won championships. All of them had excellent and multiple mid-range guys, which Dejounte Murray is one and DeMar DeRozan would be another. So that would be huge, not counting Anthony Davis, stuff like that, right? So that's something. But anyway, again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.